Well, today everybody, in this video, let's do some amp modeler ranking, shall we? It's a cliche saying at this point, but it has never been a better time to be a guitar player. In 2023, almost going into 2024 now, which is really scary to think about, we have so much just variety in terms of gear that we can use to get great tones. And modelers arguably may in fact be the most popular piece of gear that people use when recording and or touring. So I have a bevy of amp modelers that I'm going to be ranking with you all here today, ranging from what are considered the industry standards all the way down to budget friendly and everything in between. When ranking all these modelers, there's 4 bullet points that I want to consider: the tone, the price, the features, and the user experience, okay? So be sure to like this video before we get on into it, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so. Thank you so much in advance. Now, with that all being said, let's start ranking, shall we? All right, orientating you to my tier ranking list right now. We've got the categories all the way up top from S tier down to D and everything in between. And we have, give or take, a dozen amp modelers here. So let's just start knocking them out right now. Up first is the Boss GT1000 floor unit. I'm gonna put it in C tier. It's a pretty average and just kind of middle of the road amp modeler. One thing I find interesting about the Boss amp modeler stuff is like there's not really too much hype or buzz or just overall marketing with it. Apart from Nita Strauss in one rig rundown video, I really haven't seen anybody really use this thing, honestly. And just because that's one man's opinion and one man's observation doesn't mean that it's true. But I don't know, man, it just seems like this one kind of goes under the radar. But with that being said, it's pretty packed, man. It has a lot of great features to include the XLR cable outputs. That's probably the thing I look for the most because you can go right to front of house or right into your DAW. And it's from Boss. Boss is a legendary company and they make great products. Let's go with the Kemper Toaster. Now, depending on which variant you get of the Kemper, it determines, like, I guess your overall experience, because Kempers either are powered or non-powered. But for today, for this video right here, I'm just going to be talking about the powered version of the Kemper because that one's just way cooler in my opinion, because you have the ability to power a cab on stage and you don't need an external power amp. That's huge, especially in the amp modeler world. So for that alone, I'm gonna put it all the way up in A tier. Now I know there's a bit of a consensus that the Kemper's a bit outdated and it kind of looks weird and it's like kind of hard to use. It's not like the most user-friendly thing, and you know, it's not the most inspiring looking thing. I totally get that. But again, solely sticking on the powered section idea, that's really, really huge, man. I really wish more amp modelers did that because I just think it would just, I don't know, just make them sell more. Yeah, the price would go up and stuff like that. But like with all these amp modelers, if you want to run a cab or if you want to, you know, get stage volume, you need some sort of external power, whether that's an FR, like I said, an external power amp or whatever. Because if you don't, you have to run solely to direct to front of house and hope that the sound guy has, like, you know, the wherewithal to give you enough ample stage volume through your monitors, and you know, that can be a bit problematic. For me personally, whenever I'm touring or wherever I'm playing live, I always prefer stage volume versus no stage volume and in-ears or just relying on the wedges. I hate that setup. I always like having stage volume. Real quick, I want to interject about the Kemper as well as the Headrush Prime and the Quad Cortex. I'm just going to knock all 3 of these out right now. All 3 of those units have the capture capability where you can take like a real analog rig and you can capture it and then do with it what you will inside of the modeler. And that is a feature that I failed to mention for some reason in the tier list because I thought it goes without saying, but I feel like somebody's going to call me out. So I just want to address all that right here. Yeah, capture features, although I'm not a huge fan of that, that is certainly something incredibly marketable and desirable for a lot of players, okay? Back to our regularly scheduled programming. The Kemper Toaster with the powered section gets A tier. Let's go with the OG Headrush pedal board. Now, if you notice, I have 3 variants of Headrush because I think Headrush is like the most diverse of all these, with maybe the exception of Fractal. But anyway, the first rendition of the Headrush, I'm gonna put in C tier. The best thing about the Headrush products is the touchscreen. The touchscreen is where it's at. They, like, I think we're the first, if not the first, one of the very first amp modeler companies to have touchscreen on their unit, and that is absolutely huge, man. It's kind of funny because Headrush has actually ruined all other amp modelers for me, because the Headrush was like the first one that I ever personally got and tried, and then like when I went and tried like a Line 6 Helix, for example, I was always trying to make it touchscreen and like I just couldn't like break that habit. You know, that's a me problem, not a Line 6 problem. But you know what I'm saying? Like Headrush has really pushed the envelope in terms of like making it user friendly, and just like having that touchscreen capability is huge, man. But with that being said, I wasn't really that keen on the metal tones from the first rendition of the Headrush. The rest of the amp modeler is great, but just the high gain tones, they're just okay for me. So I'm gonna put it in C tier. All right, up next, let's go with the Fractal FX3. arguably the industry standard. I'm going to put it in A tier. It is not an S tier because I still feel as though the Axe FX isn't the most user-friendly compared to some modelers that have since come out after the fact. But in terms of tone and tweakability, the Axe FX probably is the best. The way you can dial in tones on all the Fractal stuff is just, it's amazing. It's mesmerizing, truthfully, man. Just the amount of tweakability that you have, and you can just fine-tune everything beyond belief. It's really fascinating. But now here it's almost 2024. Amp modelers are more or less becoming like big giant iPads. Like again with the touchscreen. The touchscreen for me is really, really crucial because I think it just makes things so much easier. And it's just like what we do, man. Like with our smartphones, with our iPads, like even our laptops are touchscreens at times. Like it's almost human nature now to expect that our electronics are going to be touchscreen, right? So I bet you the Axe FX3, whenever that comes out, I don't even know if that is a thing, but I guarantee you like that'll happen very, very soon. But touchscreen aside, I'll get off my soapbox. All the Fractal stuff is absolutely amazing, man. Another reason why it's not an S tier though as well is because of the fact that it is probably the most expensive out of all these. If not, very, very close. Line 6 Helix, everybody. I'm gonna put it in S tier. We have our first S tier amp modeler. Let me tell you why. First and foremost, I think the editor that comes with Line 6 stuff is very, very intuitive and easy to use. Second off, it's relatively affordable. At the time of this filming, they're give or take brand new, $1,700. And last but not least, I love the snapshot feature of the Line 6 Helix. If you're unfamiliar with what that is, it's basically like you have a rig, right? Like you have a loaded up big giant preset, and then you could take different snapshots of that rig. Like for example, 2 pedals on, 1 pedal off, take a snapshot, boom. Then you can save that rendition of your rig. Then turn off other things and then tweak the EQ on the amp, for example. Boom, take a snapshot. Now you have a different rendition of that rig again, and there you can seamlessly punch in those different snapshots in real time, especially when gigging. That's huge for me. And there's zero latency when you go from snapshot to snapshot. And it goes without saying, but I love the Line 6 Helix tones, especially the high gain tones, i.e. I'm a rock and metal dude, so that's kind of to be expected. Yeah, man, Line 6 Helix, S tier for me. Let's go with the Donner Arena $269 amp model. I'm gonna put it in B tier, man. Donner makes really, really great stuff. If you're looking for budget-friendly stuff, no matter what it is, Donner's the way to go. Has 2 XLR outputs in the back. That's huge for me. The high gain tones are pretty good. And like I said, $269. It's pretty cheap, man. Let's go with the Kemper Stage. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Now, I personally never owned one of these, but I have tried out my friend's Kemper Stages in the past, and it's just like a Kemper, but a floor unit, right? So to me, this is like better than the non-powered toaster version of the Kemper because it's a floor unit and you don't need an external foot switch. You're able to play, your modeler in real time. Whereas like the non-powered version, you still need a foot switch to work that thing in real time. And it's like, I find that to be a little not fun, for lack of a better description. But yeah, man, Kemper Stage, A tier. I love it a lot. Let's go with the Headrush Prime. Now, I've personally never tried one of these yet, so this may be inappropriate for me to rank it based solely off of what I've heard in like YouTube videos and stuff. But I'm gonna put it in A tier, man. Fingers crossed, I'm gonna put it in A tier. Headrush Prime, don't let me down. I'm gonna get one of these eventually. But the first thing I don't like about it, and I think the only thing I don't like about it, is the auto-tune feature. Now, I get it for a singer-songwriter, but like, I find that to be such an oddly specific thing for like a definitive guitar player modeler. Like, it's a guitar modeler first and foremost, like 90% of the way a guitar modeler. They also tacked on auto-tune. I find that to be a little interesting. For me, I feel like auto-tune's not as important as, say, like a power amp section. You know what I mean? Like where you can power a cabinet. You don't need auto-tune from a guitar player standpoint. But with that being said, I get it. If you're a singer-songwriter, you can have auto-tune, but like, why would you want auto-tune on your voice when playing live? I guess it would be good for recording, but they have plugins for that. So I just found that to be a little bit interesting, of like a weird kind of choice to choose with a guitar modeler. You know what I'm saying? Could be a hot take, I'm not trying to be controversial, but I found that to be oddly specific. For a guitar modeler, you could have tacked on something else. But apart from that, man, I think from what I've heard and what I've seen, it looks really, really good and a lot better than the first go round of the Headrush pedal board. Like I said, remains to be seen. I'm going to do my very own video on one of those eventually. And yeah, maybe my opinion will change for better or for worse. Hopefully not for worse. I want it to be, like an S tier, like the end all be all. But for right now, I'm going to put it in A tier just because I think they certainly stepped up their game from the guitar player standpoint. But again, the auto-tune thing, a little interesting for me personally. Let's go with the Fractal Audio AX8, basically like an Axe FX on the floor. I'm going to put it in A tier as well. Kind of what I said with the Kemper Stage, man. I like having floor units with modelers if they don't have a power section. Like if it's going to be a modeler and you're not going to be able to power a cab, might as well just put it on the floor so you can like tap dance with it. I think that's huge. And the fact that you can do that with the Fractal audio stuff is huge for me, man. Let's go with the Positive Grid Spark. Now this is barely an amp modeler. This is more or less just like a jam amp, and that's nothing but a compliment. So for me, I'm gonna put it in B tier. Now for somebody like me who tours, give or take like, I don't know, a month out of the year over the last 2 years, and plays about, give or take, I don't know, 30 shows a year in, you know, various different endeavors, I would never record nor would I ever tour with a Positive Grid Spark, just for me personally. But if you just want to jam with your Spark, this thing is awesome, dude. I've got the Spark Mini and I absolutely love this thing. Like I'll take this thing downstairs in my living room and I'll just like chug and jam whenever I want to, like when I'm watching sports or something like that. So I almost didn't even put it in this video because it's not fair to stack it up against like say like an Xander FX3. I'm not naive to that, and you know, I don't think anybody is like trying to compare the two. But with that being said, it is a modeler at the end of the day, in my opinion. Like I think it is first and foremost an amp modeler that is also like a practice amp, which is really cool. So I'm gonna put it in B tier. Really inexpensive. A lot of people love the Spark stuff, and it's a cool little unit. Quad Cortex from Neural DSP. Gotta be honest, everybody, I'm gonna put it in B tier. Now in terms of tones and routing capabilities, i.e. the 2 XLR outputs, super huge for me, and the tones are absolutely amazing. Neural DSP has great tones. However, one thing I find to be interesting is they were being sold and marketed from the get-go as having the ability to eventually, sooner rather than later, have plug-in capabilities. And that's what everybody was like super stoked on. Like you could take your Nameless Suite plugin and put it onto your Quad Cortex and jam with that. That's the end-all be-all, man. Like if that can happen, that's game over, right? However, the Quad Cortexes are approaching 3 years old now, and that still hasn't happened. And now I'm not sure exactly either, but I think the editing software, it might be out by now, but like I know there was no like desktop editor for the Quad Cortex, but it was revealed at this April 2023 NAMM. So I'm not sure if it's out yet to the public, but like it's in the works more or less. But regardless, my point is it's like the promises were there, but like the delivery at the end of the day, if you strip all that stuff that hasn't really come out yet, it's just another awesome amp modeler, but it is not what it was being marketed as. So for me, I find that to be a little bit interesting, we'll say. Now, next week, we could get a desktop editor that's super killer, and we could get the capabilities to run all our Neural plugins on this, and then this video will be obsolete, right? And then this thing would automatically go boop up to S tier, and that would be game over. But for right now, at the time of this filming, that hasn't happened, at least to the best of my knowledge. I know the plugin capability hasn't happened. Not sure about the desktop editor, definitively. But anyway, man, yeah, Quad Cortex, really, really cool idea. Almost game over against all the competition, but it still hasn't happened yet, and it seems like it's only a matter of time before, if this is even possible, I don't know, but it seems like it's only a matter of time before other companies just like make their own version of the Quad Cortex, and then all of a sudden the Quad Cortex isn't, you know, what it was promised to be. We'll just now have a bunch of competition. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is like other plugin companies will make their modeling units where they can run their plugins on the modeling unit, just like Neural DSP was promising. Let's go with the Headrush MX5, dude. This thing's just like a little Headrush, but very, very cheap. It's like $350 now at the time of this filming. It's like on sale like at like Musician's Friend and like Guitar Center and stuff. I'm gonna put it in A tier, dude. Look, like I said, I put the original Headrush down in C tier just because the tones and the feel wasn't exactly my favorite, but I love the user experience again. Me and that damn touchscreen, right? But also too, it like has all the capabilities and the power more or less as the Headrush. Doesn't have as many foot switches per se, but you can still get the same exact style of rig in the MX5 that you could get with the big giant Headrush pedal board for like a third of the price. So that's incredibly crucial for me. And last but not least, what people are marketing as the Quad Cortex biggest competition, the Tonex pedal. Dude, I'm gonna put it in S tier, man. I personally have yet to try the Tonex pedal. I'm a little late to the game, but from hearing everybody's opinions on it and seeing what it actually can do, it's literally kind of doing what the Quad Cortex was starting to promise. Basically, if you could take the Tonex pedal and morph it with the Quad Cortex, that is the ultimate modeler, and like nothing can compete with that. But the Tonex pedal, you're able to run your plugins and your software more or less onto the pedal, program it, and then you can gig with it, and like that's awesome, dude. You know what I mean? And it's only like $400, which is really, really affordable in today's market. So everybody, that's my thoughts and opinions on a lot of the modelers out there. What do you guys think of what I have to say? Leave your thoughts and opinions down below. If I haven't said it enough, I'll say it right here, man. Like, I'm not here to bash nor criticize, but like, we can't love everything. Everything can't be an S tier because that'd be a horrible video, right? So these are just one man's opinions, just flying by the seat of his pants, just like spitballing right now. And all of these products are absolutely amazing. Like, they're literally amazing, but like, you know, different strokes for different folks. There's different things that I like in modelers and certain things that I wish were in certain modelers that aren't available. You guys know what I'm saying, okay? So I shouldn't have to preface my statements as much as I do, but just being honest, man, like, yeah, this is just one man's opinion, okay? So everybody, leave your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section about what I've had to say in this video, and I'll meet you down below and we'll talk all things amp modelers, okay? With that being said, be sure to subscribe on your way out the door, and with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.